Welcome to Kings of Kimuras, your one-stop podcast for everything from mats to the stars. Join us as we dive into the heart of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, explore the thrills of MMA, and groove to the beats of music. But that's not all. We're also venturing into the unknown, discussing aliens and the mysteries of the cosmos. And of course, we'll be shooting the breeze, sharing stories, and laughs along the way. Get ready for a wild ride from a universe of topics. Strap in and prepare to explore the world of BJJ, MMA, music, aliens, and more. Let's roll.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Kings of Kimuras podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tony Trammell. I'm out here in the garden today enjoying some outside weather, even though it's a little bit cloudy. So tune into our podcast, get outside and do something, guys. Thanks.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 7 of Kings of Kimuras podcast. We're kind of like getting into a rhythm now. We just had another podcast, episode 6, come out today. I'm sorry for the sirens, guys. We have the doors open. It's not smelling great in here, not because of the training, but because of something going on with the sewers and the bathroom. So bear with us. Don't complain too much.
At least we set it up quick today.
Yeah.
We didn't have to smell this all day.
Yeah, it was a lot faster. Like as we continue, it just gets easier. There's still some stuff that I would prefer to do differently, but it is what it is, so it's going good. How's everything with you? Good?
Going great. I got a match on Fight to Win tomorrow.
Yeah.
So a little tune-up fight before trials. Try some new stuff out, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's important too. All of the guys and girls that are going to trials, I was really trying to help them get matches because I think it's important to, just have that experience before you get closer to competing in a big match. You don't want to go a month without nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. With competition, the more you can stay in the fire, the better, the more comfortable you'll be. Especially with something like Fight to Win. I think it's a lot of people they get nervous about the stage and the music and the crowd and all that. I don't really have a problem with it. I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. I like it more than a tournament, honestly, because tournaments, usually for the most part, everybody's there to kind of watch their guy or watch their teammate or coach or whatever. But with a super fight, it's one by one. So even the people who aren't necessarily there to just watch you, they see your match and wow, that guy's pretty good, Mm-hmm. And it's a good way to kind of grow your following.
Yeah, I always kind of fed off of it. I enjoyed the experience of competing on the stage, mainly because when you're up there, you think oh, everybody's looking at me, but really you can't see that. You're not focused on that. The last thing from your mind is what's this person doing in the 5th row back?
Right, yeah, they're just, when I walk out there, it's everybody's an NPC,
Mm-hmm.
I know they're there, and I hear them cheering for me, but I don't know where they are. I don't know. I can hear it in my, peripheral. I'm oh, thank you, whoever just cheered for me.
Yeah.
But that's like you were saying, that is the last thing that's on my mind when I go out there. All I'm thinking about is let's get to work. That's all I think about.
So there's yourself, Lindsay, Tahila, and Maria that are all have matches. Lindsay has 2 matches, which I think she'll do well in both of them,
Yeah, she's in great condition. She's she always stays in good shape. And she's always in here training and trying to get better. And Lindsay's one of those people too who I feel pushes herself outside of her comfort zone a lot more than I'd say other people. Especially in the wrestling department or the stand-up department. She I could tell after Nogi World she was pretty irked that she couldn't work her stand-up like she wanted to, and she's been in here working that a lot. So it's good to see. I think she'll win both matches, of course, by submission.
Yeah, I think so as well. And then Tahila is fighting a a lady from Brazil that we just saw fight one of our other teammates at Naga, and she threw up on her foot and got disqualified.
Yeah.
I'm not like trying to hate on her for that, because that could really happen to anybody. Like, there's been times where I felt like I was going to throw up. Thankfully I haven't ever thrown up during training or competing, but there's been times where I wasn't far from either that or a heart attack.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see, how this match is going to go. I think Tahila, her attacking style is like going to be a pace for this girl that'll be hard to handle, but also she's like come up through like all the kid belts too. So
Yeah, very
she's probably
true.
got a very solid gi game. I don't know about the no gi, and that's the good thing sometimes of like, these people that come from Brazil. They want to take matches, and like they'll just take whatever they can. And I think this is a scenario where, she may not be as prepared as what she thinks she is.
Yeah, absolutely. Tahila is one of those people who always asks me questions after training. Like, always is trying to improve her game.
Yeah.
Especially, like her attacking game, because her guard's very difficult to pass, but she needs more submission threats. So
Yeah.
now she's kind of adding that into her game, and then she's also getting in better condition, I can tell, too. Like, a lot of those people that we had compete at Naga were kind of sucking wind after a couple matches. They were kind of feeling the fatigue a little bit. So I think that was a good eye-opener for a lot of them, because they're like, oh, man, I really got to make sure that I'm in good shape when I come out here.
Well, and that's something that, like, I think every athlete deals with at some point, of the understanding of doing jiu-jitsu isn't enough. There are those guys in the past for sure. Marcelo Garcia is like a really famous guy that said he never did any weight conditioning. But at the time he was like competing, I don't know how many guys were doing that,
Right.
Like, now we understand, there's a whole like team of people behind guys. I mean, let's take Gordon Ryan, for example. He has like a trainer. Obviously it's like his wife, but he has like a trainer. He also has somebody that handles all his supplements, all of his peptides, all of his meals. These are like real athletes, and you have to, sure, not everybody can afford that in the beginning, but you have to almost think that way in order to be very successful. You at least have to start, having a trainer, having a coach. Like, these things are important. You can definitely be your own coach for a while, but it's so much better to, listen to somebody else and like, okay, these are the things that I need to do. Okay, that's what I'm doing.
Right. It's a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
If the more stuff that you're juggling at once, the less time you have to focus on competition, especially because your competition is only going to get more cutthroat as you move up through the belts. So you might be able to get away with not doing strength and conditioning at blue belt, maybe purple belt, but the best blue and purple belts are doing those things. Like, all those kids from AOJ, they start them like that little. There's that little yellow belt kid.
Oh yeah.
He's doing strength and conditioning right now. So that next generation coming up, if you're trying to get your kids into jiu-jitsu and they're taking it more serious, man, you can't neglect that stuff. And it sucks because you still want them to be a kid, right? Like, you don't want to burn them out too quick, because we know plenty of people who they started as kids and then they moved up through all the kids belts and they became teenagers and were like, you know what, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Even though they're really talented, really skilled, if your heart's not in it and you're not having fun with it, it doesn't matter how good you are at it. It's not going to be worth doing because you're just miserable all the time.
Yeah, it has to be enjoyable, and you have to have goals, or like that burnout is a real thing. I feel like as long as you're like setting goals and you're actually like able to obtain, you've got to have like a wide variety of goals. If you're like, one goal is to like get this belt, then when you get that belt, there's no motivation for you.
Yep, absolutely.
If our goal is like each day we're looking to improve, or we're trying to hit a certain sub, like for me as a black belt, training for almost 15 years now, I try to, obviously, like, I'm not going to win every single round, like, I'm older, I know that's a reality, but my goal is like with each person that I train with, I'm trying to do certain things. I'm like whether I'm trying to like only work on my sweeps or I'm only working my passes or I'm trying to hit a certain sub or control. And that keeps me motivated. You know, like I never show up and I'm like, man, I don't feel like being here today. I'm always like, I'm excited to do something.
Right. And I think once that thought kind of crosses your mind, you almost have to go, okay, hold on. Let me try to reframe this in my mind to where I'm going to actually get something out of this training. Because at a certain point, you know, if you're training all the time and teaching, like you're going to feel that. Your body's going to feel it. You're going to kind of be like out of it for a little bit. But then once you refocus and go, okay, well, it's probably because I'm just taking the wrong approach to the training today. Like I need to switch up my approach and maybe work on things that I need to work on. That's what's going to keep you going for the next day. Because and then as you start to see yourself improve at those things that you're not so good at, that's going to that's just going to carry you on through however many sessions until you start to go, okay, well, I'm pretty good at this now. Let's try something else I'm not too good at.
Right.
You know? For me, it's like outside passing. My outside passing is, which is really funny because I have good attributes. Like I have really long arms and legs, so I can outside pass pretty well. I just wasn't working it a whole lot. And after Naga, I was like, man, I should have been outside passing a lot more. I think if I would have done that, I could have done a lot better. So that's been my focus through training, and that's honestly carried me through like multiple weeks, because obviously it's not something that you're going to perfect right away. It's something that you just have to play with over time, and you kind of start to develop your own stuff. Like I take things from instructionals for sure, but then I take those things and I kind of add my own twist on it. You know, I kind of put different things together and kind of make it my own.
Yeah, definitely your goals can switch, like you're saying, you know, in the middle of your, you know, time of training jiu-jitsu, we can have one goal, but we go to one competition and our goal is completely changed. You know, like you got to work on other things. You got to refocus your energy. You know, that's the key to training and longevity, is just being smart and like understanding, okay, I've always got to continue my learning. You know, you can never get to that point where you're like, this is it. This is all I'm doing. You know, and there's guys that have made their whole career off of that. You know, some of them have the last name Gracie, where, you know, they're like, these are the only moves that we learn. And those moves are very effective, but they're only effective, you know, to a certain variety of people that don't train.
Right.
But if we're thinking of like, we continue training forever, then your game has to evolve. Your thought process has to evolve, you know.
Yeah,
everything's
absolutely.
Gotta change.
Or else it's going to turn into a situation where like somebody's going to come up to you, ask you a question, and you're not going to have the answer. And so I feel like what some coaches do is, this is really toxic, but I've definitely have seen it before, where they go up and they ask the coach a question. Maybe it's how to escape a sub or something. Well, just don't get put there. Like, okay, dude, thanks, man. But here's the thing. I'm getting put there all the time. So show me maybe the early stage defense and the late stage defense. But instead of trying to break it down like that, the coach just throws his hands up in the air. Oh, you got caught in that darce again. Whatever. Like, how about this? How about you try to actually instruct me, you know, like your job is saying, instead of just, you know, throwing me through these warm-ups for half an hour and then doing like 15 minutes of technique and then rolling. Like, that's...
Yeah. There's another way that I've handled that before. And I've only handled it like this when I have one of those students that like always has a question.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, what happens here? I'm like, hey man, you need to like book a private, you know, like, that's the only way, because you ask so many questions. There's no way I'm like answering. You just asked me like 6 weeks worth of class information in one question. And you show up like once every other week.
Yeah. You're going to have to get some privates, dude, because like, yeah, that's very true as well. I guess like the flip side to it is, if somebody's not coming all the time and then they ask you a bunch of questions, it's like, well, dude, if you just showed up to train more, these questions would you could kind of get a general framework for the answer, and then you could come to me with more specific questions instead of, I had this guy ask one time, he was like, is there any way to stop a takedown? Word for word, just like that. And I was like, Yes, yeah, there's lots of different ways to stop a takedown. Book a private.
Yeah.
Like
You should have given him the easy answer, like, yes, you just pull guard. There's no way you're ever getting taken down again.
Just do this. Just sit right away. You don't have to worry about it ever. But yeah, then, you know, we see how many guys, black belts, they never try to learn anything, so they're just teaching the same thing over and over and over again. And then their students go, well, we're pretty like good at this. How about we, you know, like try something different? And then they just never try anything different.
Yeah.
Then what happens? They go and they try to seek out a different school. You know, like we've had plenty of people come in here and they go, well, I just love the level of instruction in here and how precise everything is, and also the amount of rolling that we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have to do like a million 5-minute rounds or 6-minute rounds. Like you can get a lot done with 5 6-minute rounds, 4 6-minute rounds if they're really productive rolls, you know. But then there's some schools that don't roll at all. I had a friend, or he is still my friend, who lives in Missouri, and the gym that's kind of near where he lives in town, they don't roll at all. Like the only rolling they do is open mat. Mm-hmm. And for open mat, the instructor comes in, he opens the school, he throws some time on the clock, and then just goes into his office and like does nothing, you know? Like it's one of those kinds of schools. So
he's like there to make the money and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I started at a school. Well, I shouldn't say I started there. I started at another school, and then when I like really got into grappling, the coach was like, hey, you need to go to this school. And I ended up going there, and there was one coach that would never have any rolling. You'd like show up, and it'd be straight into class, and it'd be like an hour and a half of class of like, you know, very, very basic instruction.
Yeah.
And then there was another guy that only did rolling, and
no
instruction at all. And the class was really the one that did only rolling was geared for him and one other guy, because most of the time that's all it was, you know, like they were avid competitors. They were just like blue belts and I was a white belt, but they wouldn't teach you anything. And then they'd go 100% on every submission. You know, like I was injured all the time, but I enjoyed the rolling aspect of it. And I didn't understand the importance for the drilling part, you know, mainly because I felt like that instructor, you know, what did I know? The guy was like a purple belt. But that instructor really didn't know enough to like teach technique that I was interested in learning.
Right. Exactly.
And I didn't know what I wanted to learn, but I knew that like what I see him teaching is like not that effective of technique.
Yeah, for sure. You can just look at something and kind of like break it down in your mind. Like, I'm not sure about this one. I'm not sure about this one. But
and it was like a very traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, you know, but that's all there was. So that's what I did.
Yeah. You just for the love of the game. Like there's just something inside of everybody that like grappling is an integral part of so many cultures around the world that people, when they come in and they start grappling, like something like starts to like come out of them, you know, you can see it, you know, people who look pretty unassuming when they walk in, they start grappling, they start getting hands on somebody. And they're like, oh, you kind of see them like light up a little bit, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's good. I love seeing that, you know, because I feel like so many people need that kind of outlet and need that sort of like that intensity, but without getting injured. You know, like people need something that's intense. Like grappling is an intense thing for sure, especially when you just start, because you don't know what you're doing. You're probably going to use too much strength at first. You're gonna get more exhausted than you've probably ever been in your life. So like all these things add up, but the people who catch the bug, as I say, they'll keep coming in and being consistent, and then before you know it, they're a blue belt, you know, and then hopefully they don't quit, because some people, like we were talking about before, they just want that blue belt and then they quit. And I'm like, dude, that's like, we're not even getting started yet. you know, like this is just to show you, like, you've been coming in, you've been consistent, you've been putting in the work. Good job, man. But there's still a lot more work we got to do.
Yeah, I had one of those experiences of like when I first started, I was convinced that I was probably going to tap somebody on the first day.
Yeah.
I had like no prior experience, but I watched a lot of UFC, and I'd done like, everybody has like grown up doing some kind of like fucking around with their friends where they're grappling or something.
Yeah.
And I was pretty good. I never like would end up on the bottom. But then my first class, I like put a guy in a triangle, but I had no idea how to finish it, So I'm like trying to squeeze with all my strength and like nothing's happening. And then the guy passes the triangle and then I'm like getting beat up for the next 3 minutes.
You're like, man, my legs are so tired right now. I can't do anything.
Yeah, but that realization of like, oh, I don't really know anything, happened pretty early for me. And that's why I continued to come back. I've had people tell me that they thought they were going to submit either myself or one of the other instructors like the first day. And they had that thought process for like an entire month.
They're like, today's the day, man. I'm going to get him today. Like,
yeah.
I feel good today. I'm like, bro, I don't care if you feel 100% today and I'm on my deathbed right now. You're still not going to submit me.
People don't understand the amount of hours that like a trained person puts in compared to somebody off the street that does like 30 minutes, trial class or something. Like there's no way, even if I think you have like a knife or something, like it still wouldn't be fair. You'd have to have like a gun and you're going to be across the room where I can't get to you before you pull the trigger.
You'd have to have a spear and be like pointing it at me and trying to like stab me.
I think even then though, like if you get a hold of the spear, you're done for.
Yeah, I'm wrestling that thing out of your hands and you're done. And well, it's like this guy Scalabrini, I think, from the NBA. Mm-hmm. He would do 1v. He's like this tall, ginger, white dude, and people online would say like, "Dude, I could take you in a 1v1, no problem."
Oh, I've seen that guy, and he's like the lowest guy on the.
Yeah, he's not like he's not like great in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like he's okay. But just an okay NBA player versus a person who plays some pickup games in the rec center on the weekend is going to get absolutely murked. And he said, like, he has a great quote. He said he beat this guy like 11-0 or something. And he told the guy, "I'm closer to LeBron James than you are to me." Like I'm closer to the best basketball players in the world than you are to me because of the amount of hours and time that guy put in. And he's absolutely right. Like people think they're going to come in here and like take me down or something. Like, dude, I'm closer to a UFC fighter like Colby Covington than you are to me. Like you're not going to get close. I can't let you get close.
Yeah, people just have this unrealistic expectation of like what their real world skills are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, like even sometimes as somebody who's obviously I'm pretty good at jiu-jitsu, so sometimes I'll go into something thinking that, oh well, I'm pretty athletic, like, and I'm open to learn, so I think I'll do pretty well with this. And then just absolutely be terrible at it because it's a lot different than I expected.
Yeah.
But then that's what makes it fun because it's like, oh man, I'm really not as good as I thought. Like that's fun for me. I know some people like crumble on the inside because then their ego is just shattered. But honestly, because I've trained martial arts almost my whole life, like I feel like my ego doesn't get involved. I just enjoy the process for like what it is. Even the things that I'm bad at.
I think for me, the reason I like to try some new things, but I have to be very cautious about what I try because I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
And if somebody is like, if we're doing something and it's a sport related or score related, even, I will do my best to like beat everybody. Like I'll totally forget about having fun and it becomes competition. Like one of the things that I tell this story often, but we went to Hawaii a few years ago and there was like 4 of us and we decided to do this Diamond Head hike. And I don't know exactly how high it is, but it's high. There's a lot of change in elevation, a lot of steps. It's all steps. There's no like ramp.
Oh, shit.
And you're going from like the base level to the top of this volcano. And I had some old dude like pass me wearing loafers. You know, I'm like carrying a backpack with water, and I have Susan's, my wife's stuff, and then 2 other people's water with me as well. And this guy passes me, and we're like a quarter of the way up, and I just take off. Like I start sprinting up this hill.
Up these steps.
I get all the way to the top. And then I realized, like, oh man, I've got everybody's water, and like this has been like a I don't know, probably like a 25-minute run up this.
Losers weepers, man.
So I run back down, and I meet them, and they're like by halfway. We were like a quarter originally, now they're halfway. So I've gone like 3/4 additional space, and I hand them the water and stuff. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, you know, but like it's that simple for me. I can become competitive, you know, like
I can't let this guy with loafers win this, man. I can't do it.
Yeah. So now, guys, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, guys, it's Dominic Ramos here, one of the head instructors at Corvo Martial Arts, here to talk to you guys about our new downtown Plano location. We're going to be having adults classes, kids classes, all that good stuff. Make sure you guys come and check us out. The gym should be open around the first week of April. We promise you guys we're going to give you the best martial arts experience in the DFW area. Come and check us out.
All right, guys, we're back from the break. Is there anything else that's like coming up big, like any events or anything?
Yeah, besides trials,
right.
I mean, that's pretty much it. I think the whole like jiu-jitsu community kind of goes, like starts to freeze up around this time, you know, because well, maybe like Gi Pans is coming up.
Yeah,
I know there's a lot of people training for that.
IBJJF event coming up. That's like this weekend, I think, right?
Is it? I
think so.
That goes to show you how much I pay attention to Gi Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, something I really want to talk about was like how a coach should be in a kid's class. And the reason I want to bring this up is I saw a post recently this week where there was some guy somewhere that had a woman leave a review on Google, and basically she was complaining about how hard he was on the kids, and that he should be allowing like it to be more free and fun, and you know, and he responded back basically saying like, you know, he demands like an excellence out of his school. I feel like he went overboard with like the way that he handled it, and I'll post some of that too here, and like, you know, when we make our reels. But I feel like there should be some kind of like guidance from a coach, especially in a kids program, where it's not military, but it's also not like you're their best friend, you know. And I think sometimes kids can misconstrue the relationship that a coach may have, you know, like if we're, you know, we joke around, we have fun, but like when it comes time to get the work done, you have to respect the coach and do the work, right? You got to trust that the coach has your best interest. And I think as a parent, you have to kind of just step back and remove yourself from that, you know. And obviously they have the final say. If the school is not what they're wanting, then they probably shouldn't like try to, hey, can you change your coaching style? It's like, if it's not for you, then you need to go somewhere else.
Right,
you know?
Exactly. And the thing with kids is kids are way more observant than I think we understand. Like, they observe literally like every little thing. Like when coaches are interacting with each other, they're paying attention to that. When, you know, their parents are sitting off to the side, they pay attention to that. Like, you know, kids obviously have a very short attention span, but they're very observant of like all these different things. So it's kind of just about getting them to focus up for just like you have a window, I feel like, with kids. And the more fun they're having, the more open that window is going to be, you know, where I've had kids, they're like, oh man, it's already been like the class is already over, man. I was having so much fun, you know, and it is a very fine line you have to play between, like, if a kid's like doing their own thing and not participating with the class, then you have to kind of like straighten them out and get them to come back in. It's kind of like herding cattle or like herding sheep, you know. One starts to go off over there, you got to send the dog over and, you know, get them back into the mix, because can't be having stragglers, you know. There's some kids that they get pretty distracting and stuff, So you just have to nip that in the bud when it happens and not let it get out of control, because then then the other kids see that kid going, oh, well, I could do that too, because they're just letting them get away with whatever. So it's like I can't let them get away with things, which, kind of sucks, because then you have to really like be on top of certain kids. But at the same time, once you kind of set that boundary of, hey, I can't let this slide, I'm not going to let you like, get away with this, then one, they'll respect you more. Two, they'll probably be more likely to, actually interact with the group and, pay more attention. And that window, like I was talking about, will just continue to open up.
Yeah. Somebody that's taught kids for a long time, to me, girls always pick it up sooner than boys, but they're always the first to like stop training. It's like something that happens like around 14, 15 years old. Most of them are like burnout. Like very few that I've experienced continue that training, all the way through. Like they'll take a few years break and they'll probably come back in their 20s or something. But
yeah, I think as puberty kicks in, like those hormones, they just do something different. I mean, for boys, maybe a boy is not as aggressive or maybe not as like motivated or, just for lack of a better term, just a little soft. It's nothing wrong with being soft. Okay. But then as puberty hits, you see some of those kids like really change and like turn that table, and they're like a little more aggressive and they're a little more like have a more of like a chip on their shoulder. But yeah, with girls, it's almost like the opposite. Once they hit puberty, they kind of start to move away from more of like the jiu-jitsu or like physical things in general.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, the boys, they just continue. Like, I think it's something that's very important for boys and young men to be involved with something that's difficult, whether that's like wrestling or judo or jiu-jitsu. Like all of those things are difficult. Even, if we think like football or something, like some kind of physical activity. I don't think basketball or baseball builds like the toughest guys in the world, but
no, that's a no.
Football, wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, fighting, all of those things are very beneficial. And not only like are they good for you physically and mentally, but like, down the road, like that, I feel like you can apply those same learnings into your, let's say you go to the corporate world, like, or even your own business or your family at some point.
You're just going to have that edge, like the people who have gone through that kind of stuff just have an edge. And you got to think like living in America is very easy. Like we have it very easy in this country. As much as people want to say we like don't and want to complain, you got to like put it into perspective, man. If we're looking at America versus almost any other country in the world, we have it very, very easy here.
Sure.
So you have to put yourself in situations where you're going to become tough. You have to step outside of your comfort zone. And I think like, the way American culture is nowadays, I think it's kind of switching a little bit. You start to see like these influencer people. Well, now, whether they're doing it for content or not, they're still putting themselves in these situations, like Sneeko rolling with Nate Diaz. These people stepping into the ring with professional boxers, like Alex Pereira was kind of like play sparring with this rapper guy. Like, it's starting to slowly kind of become more mainstream, like combat sports. So I think we're starting to see a little bit of a shift, but for the most part, people are still pretty soft generally. So they need something that's going to be physically challenging and also rewarding. Like you get rewarded in jiu-jitsu when you're coming in and being consistent.
Yeah.
You get rewarded in real time. Like if somebody comes in and they're untrained or maybe a white belt that was smashing you at first, if you're more consistent than them, you're probably going to end up, catching them sooner or later, whether it's a month, 2 months, in a pretty short period of time, you could catch up to that person. So,
yeah, that was a big thing for me I think I was like a purple belt and I was no longer training with my original coach. I had moved to Dallas and he was still teaching and training at his own school. And he was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, but like a black belt under Chuck Norris and whatever, like karate. And the guy was like a legit fighter. He fought out of Strike Force. And I remember rolling with him at an open mat, and I tapped him like 5 or 6 times in a row, and like he just wrecked me.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything. And then like I felt like I had this superpower. It was almost like I felt like, is he really doing anything? Like he's not reacting, like
Yeah.
but it was just I had spent so much more time. And now he's a black belt, but I'd spent so much time training in between the time that I trained with him. I was doing like 2 a day, and one of those trainings was like 2.5 hours. Where he's like still just teaching classes. And like if you're teaching classes, it's hard to be drilling and teaching class at the same time.
Yeah, it's very tricky.
Yeah. So, that's one of the best things that happens in jiu-jitsu. And that's, if I could like put that on on the membership sign up, like, hey, you're going to feel like this when this happens. I think more people would probably sign up and stay.
Like a car salesman,
like if there was some way to like, put this feeling into somebody, like, hey, this is what it feels like when the guy that's been beating you up, all of a sudden like you're destroying him.
Yeah.
I think people would be hooked, because that's something that I felt for me that really kind of hooked me. Is like, I was already a purple belt, but I like felt that I'm like, oh, I got to keep going because this guy used to beat me and he was this belt. And then once you get to a black belt, it doesn't matter, right? You should be like tapping each other, but there's levels to black belt.
Yeah, very much levels to it.
Yeah.
Like there's some guys who have been black belts for longer than I've been training, and I've been training for like almost 13 years now.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, I've been a black belt for like 15 years. Wait a minute, what?
And
What?
just like there's levels to black belts and really all belts, there's also like levels to instruction and understanding of warm-ups. And there's some of those people out there that like do a bunch of unnecessary warm-ups where some of the stuff is, I think it's important for like team building, but like when we're talking about training professional athletes, there's no reason that like we're doing like carries of another person or
right, we're doing some outlandish things for the warm-up, like
hopping over somebody or like
yeah, we used to do this one in I think in wrestling you see this more because in wrestling there's more of an emphasis on athleticism. So like we would usually do it at the end of practice, where we would do like these different partner drills for like trying to build athleticism essentially. But one of them was we would take a shot between the legs, and then we would do like a frog hop over, and then just like
I've done that
go
before,
like that, and that's like something fun you can do with like kids and stuff. But if you tell adults to do that, one, they're probably gonna, as they're shooting, they're gonna headbutt somebody in the junk, and then you're gonna get some complaints there. But then also it's like, okay, well, how's this like helping my jiu-jitsu? And well, I don't know, man. It's just something that's fun and like athletic to do, I guess. But I mean, if you want to actually get better at jiu-jitsu, obviously you have to dive deep into the technique and like really understand it. And I don't think frog jumps are going to help you do that.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think is very important when selecting a school is like how long are their warm-ups, how long is their instruction, and how long are they rolling for? If the instruction part is the shortest part or one of the shortest parts, there's probably a reason for that. I would imagine like the instructor is just trying to, get through the class, make his money, go home at the end of the day, which, I understand that, people like get stuck in this rut, but like as a martial arts instructor, you're leading from the front. So that means not only should you be teaching the best stuff, but you should also continue learning, and if you get stuck in this, like, oh, this is my job, I show up and I work these hours and then I go home, you are not working for the DMV.
Right.
This is like,
not the DMV, brother.
This is something completely different,
Yeah, this is, like you said, you're a leader. Like if you're a martial arts instructor, that's why people, the position is kind of like easy to abuse, because people get that. It's almost like, being a leader in anything. People are going to listen to you. What you say for a lot of these people is what goes. Like, sometimes I forget that as an instructor. I'm like, man, when I tell somebody to like do something, like they're really like, this is all I'm gonna do because Dom told me to do it. And I'm like, well, there's more like layers to it. There's other things you can do. But since I instructed them in this certain way, this is what they're going to do and how they're going to do it until I say so, you know?
Yeah.
And that with that kind of power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, it's
but,
true. Honestly, yeah, it's very true.
Spider-Man was right. Or Uncle Ben was right.
You know, after I got my black belt, there's like I knew that I was good and like I was competing and stuff, but then you're like, you reach this goal and you're like almost have this imposter syndrome, you know? And even at competing, it was like messing with me for a while. And then like I finally started to get it down. But as I was like progressing in this, and I was like, well, let me go a step further. Let me work with a sports psychologist to like, you know, help kind of like refocus myself. And I remember talking to him distinctly about one of the things of, you know, I don't want to be like seen as a guru.
Right.
And he's like, man, if you tell people that you don't want to be seen as a guru, they look at you more as like a guru.
It's like
you
telling
know?
somebody to like do something and they do the opposite, right? It's just so.
And basically, you know, what it came down to is like, look, people are going to look at you differently and treat you differently because of where you're at. And the best thing that you can do is like help them understand that you're no different than them. It's just you put in a bunch of work to reach a goal.
Right.
You know?
You're just at a different stage in that kind of like development in a certain area than they are.
But as far as like, you know, on some other type of like, you know, physical plane, like, or mental or spiritual, like, you know, we're the same. You know, we're like all trying to reach the same goal. I have the same frustrations that you have. Mine are just different. I have the same problems. You know, mine are just different. Right.
Right.
So, you know.
Absolutely. Everybody goes through those struggles.
Yeah.
You know, and like working with a sports psychologist is something I've definitely considered. But for me, it's like the little things that add up. Like I used to listen to music a lot before competitions. Like, and honestly, my playlist is set up to where it's like everything is kind of lumped together. So you could get any kind of like mixture of music. Like if I hit next, it could be anything. But honestly, that just kind of ended up making me more anxious. And then when I would take my headphones off, in my mind and like my body would be like, okay, now it's time to go. And then I would get all like worked up. Whereas if I don't listen to music and I just kind of warm up and I kind of just take in the atmosphere of the room and like, you know, just kind of be present there instead of trying to go back into my own mind, I feel like that works a lot better for me, you know? So if you are one of those people that needs music, try it without it and then see how you do, you know?
For me, I would always listen to music. I have like a whole playlist of, it's called comp songs, you know? So I click on that and it like runs through this like queue of songs. But something that when I worked with a sports psychologist, he was saying like to equate some kind of smell to the same as training, you know, like whether it was like the smell of the mats or whatever. And I ended up using something called like an RC oil. So I would like smell it, you know, during training. I would have it with me. And then when I would get ready to compete, I would smell it. But I would do other things with the music where, you know, I would listen to that playlist while I was like lifting weights or while I was like running on the treadmill or, you know, being like the instructor of the class. I could play those songs here in the class. And so I would like build these mental reps of like hearing this music and like, you know, feeling these good sensations. And then when I would go listen to it before I would compete, I could like call on those, you know, Goggins calls them like his mental cookie jar. And it was very similar to that, you know, like I would have this success in the weight room or the training room or, you know, whatever it was. And I could like, oh yeah, at this part of this song, this is where this happened, you know, and I have this like good euphoric feeling. But I've also done like, if you choose the wrong music, you know, I feel like if you're listening to some like Megadeth or something, you like over amp yourself. You know?
Some fucking war music.
Yeah. I had like the honor one time of like hanging out with Andre Galval, like one-on-one. And it was because I worked for War Tribe and they brought him to do a seminar. And so I got like several hours with just he and I. And I'm a blue belt, you know, I never met this guy before. But as we're driving, I'm like picking his brain. I'm asking him questions. And one of the questions I did ask was, about music. And he was like telling me the story about his brother, who I didn't really know he had a brother, but
Yeah, me either.
his brother used to listen to Bob Marley. I don't know if he passed away or something, but it was kind of like he was talking about him in his past tense. But I asked him what he listened to before he competed, and he said he didn't listen to anything heavy. He listened to, at that time, he was listening to like Cranberries.
Yeah.
You know, that song Linger. And he said, I listened to it because it's not too, it doesn't get me too hyped. It kind of like keeps me calm. And really that's how you want to be during competition. You don't want to be amped up. I see these guys like going out there and like slapping their face and slapping their chest. And like, if you're doing all that to get yourself ready to go out and compete, man, you're already lost. You need to be able to go out there in the worst condition, but physically, but mentally you're still sharp.
Dude, and then they do all that to do what? Pull guard.
Yeah, they slide and pull guard.
I did all this slapping and all this stuff to just slide out and pull guard.
It was like a meme that I shared today, of like you spent all this time working on your stand-up for everybody to pull guard at the competition.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's just sometimes how the cookie crumbles, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was honestly kind of blessed enough at Nogi Worlds. Like, most of my opponents wanted to stand, and so they quickly realized that I could get behind them from standing, and then the match was pretty much over from there. But yeah, there's like one guy who tried to play guard, and the match went on a little bit longer, but still I was able to get him eventually. But yeah, it's like, imagine you working so hard on this one thing just for somebody to pull guard on you.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, man. Like, and you can't really dictate what's going to happen in a match, right? And that's something that I used to do when I competed a lot. I would like get my heart rate up, like even before competing. Like I'd just be like sitting at home and like thinking about, if I go against this guy, I'm going to do this and this. And like, then I check my heart rate and it's like 150.
Dude, it's crazy how like when you think about the sometimes I'll even be watching like competition footage and I'll notice my heart rate start to go up because like I'm literally putting myself in that situation right there, like when I'm watching it, and it keeps me dialed into the match for sure, and where I can like really dissect the match and like what's going on. But it's like it's such an odd feeling when you like, I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting in my room right now with like just some shorts on, and my heart rate is like over 100 beats per minute because I'm watching jiu-jitsu videos. Or I'll like be watching sometimes like the B team training footage, and my heart rate will go up. You know what I mean?
Do you think there'll be some point in the future where, have you heard of those haptic feedback devices?
It sounds familiar.
It's like a device you wear on your body and you like feel the pressure or, the strike or whatever. You think there's a moment where they'll have some simulator for jiu-jitsu where you can put that on? You never have to train with anybody, but you like understand what the pressure and stuff feels like.
Dude, you turn it up to Craig Jones pressure and you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. That's the rumor of like how Elio Gracie got good. Not from like the haptic feedback, but like sitting there and watching people. I personally think that that's not true,
I think you can get good to a certain degree, but you have to feel the pressure and of giving it and receiving it. Pause. You have to feel that, if you're trying to, let's say, teach a body lock pass, but you've never body lock passed somebody before. It's like, yeah, you might know all the steps and like how to grip your hands together and all this and that, but unless you've actually done it to somebody and like really put that pressure or had it done to you, you're just not gonna. There's gonna be a disconnect there. You know, gotta feel that pressure.
Sure. Yeah. So, what do you think is like more important on skill building or physical conditioning?
Yeah. So, skills training, if you're a martial artist, is always going to be number one. But if you are in such bad shape that you can't recall those skills when it matters, then it's not going to matter. So, there's like they both work together. But I think if you're going to have one or the other, you gotta be skilled, Because you could be in the best shape of your life, but if you don't know what you're doing, you could go out there against a guy who chain smokes cigarettes every day and like just pulls guard on you and leg locks you like that.
We had a guy that trained with us like briefly that was so physically strong that he could just like stand up and flex out of body triangles. You remember him?
yeah.
But his skills like didn't exist. And I remember him having a conversation with somebody else. He was like, yeah, man, I went over there and trained with those guys, and like nobody could tap me. Like I was standing there purple belts. And the guy goes, was that true? And I go, look, man, there's some guys that don't understand what it means to train jiu-jitsu. You know, like nobody was putting you in any kind of danger. People were positionally controlling you, and you were escaping with power and strength. Nobody ever put you in a submission attempt.
Right.
It's like a big difference of like, you know, it's almost like like we're talking about the white belt, you know, like, today is the day. Today I'm getting you. You know, people don't understand that, look, man, you're not getting 100% of this guy.
You're not getting a competition roll out of me. You know, like if I'm really trying to go 100%, you're going to want to probably quit before that 6 minutes is up.
Yeah, not even quit the round, like quit jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
you know, like,
you're going to want to just retire from the sport.
Yeah, because competition is rough. You know, I think people have this like unrealistic mindset of like what competition is like. And, you know, for a real competitor, it's not like, you know, barely holding grips or barely making collar ties. Watch these guys make collar ties at ADCC. They're trying to slap the guy's head. You know, they're ineffective because they don't know what they're doing, but like it's a slap. But
yeah,
if
they're trying to rip your head off.
Imagine some dude like coming off the couch and like, I can do that. And he goes out there and gets like collar tied by Pedro Mourinho.
Yeah,
you know, like,
that guy's going to be he's going to, you know, I've seen that look on plenty of people's face, that look of like the deer in the headlights, like complete shock. Like, what was that? Like, they've just never felt anything like that before.
Yeah.
And that goes right back to the trained versus untrained. Like, man, if you've trained for 3 months and you go against somebody who's trained 0 months, yeah, it's going to be a very, very, very different feel for the trained versus the untrained person. Like, the trained person is just going to have their way with that untrained person. If they're the same, like, size and weight, obviously if it's like a 250-pound man versus 130-pound man, you might need a few more months of experience here to maybe deal with that guy effectively, but you could still do it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, we're going to end it today. We covered a wide variety of topics here, and if you guys have any comments on what you want to talk to us about or have us talk about, please put them in the comments. Thank you to our sponsor, Eager Ones. And we've also picked up a new sponsor here. We have a new sponsor that is helping us with our supplements, our TRT, our peptides. So we'll be able to give you guys a discount as well. And we'll have a discount code in the comments on our YouTube. So make sure you check it out, guys. Thank you. So that was episode 7. Thank you guys for tuning in and being part of our journey. Make sure that you like and subscribe on all platforms. We're on YouTube as well. Anything that you guys can do will help, and we'll also have our sponsorship information out on the comments section below, guys. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's Kings of Kimuras episode. Thanks for joining us on this epic journey. Remember to keep training, stay curious, and always be ready for the next adventure. Until next time, keep your guards up and your minds open.